Your mindset is the root of your reality. If you can change your mindset, then you can change your life. Welcome, Master Your Vibe. Mind bright, vibe right. The mindset reboot for those ready for some calibration to their vibration. I'm your host, King Yes Indeed, your guide for this vibrational journey, here to help you conquer any mental blocks, fine-tune your inner frequency, and navigate to your higher self. If you're ready to make your mind bright so you can vibe right, then you're in the right place. Let the journey begin. Yes, indeed. Welcome back. Welcome back once again to Master Your Mindset, where we are still going over the 7 dimensions of mindset, and we have come to dimension number 3, the story dimension. The lens dimension is how you see. The habit dimension is how you think. The story dimension is how you explain. Simply put, the story that you tell. It's the meaning you assign to your experiences, the narrative you tell yourself about who you are, about what life means, and what role you play, and maybe even others play in the world that surrounds you. Every person is a storyteller. The difference is that some people are conscious of the stories that they tell, while others live inside of them without realizing it. So some people are very aware of the narrative that they put out, and they are conscious about how the world is going to interpret that. Others are simply just living without the realization of being in the story. All right. And so what do we mean when we talk about the story? What are some key characteristics of the story when we talk about the story dimension? Well, your story is the meaning maker. The story that you tell gives an event, it gives a time, it gives a situation meaning to you. The crazy part is that two people can go through the same exact experience at the same exact time, on the same exact day, in the same exact place, and they can make two different meanings out of it. For instance, if there is an earthquake, one person can tell themselves, this is the beginning of the end, the earth is moving, it's coming, everything's about to fall apart. And then another person can say, this is a natural disaster, this is normal, this is happens typically in the place that we live. And so, and it's nothing more than that. It's just a natural event that happens in the world. Okay, same event, two different stories, two different meanings. The stories can build an identity for you. They can determine who you are. It can say, this is who I am, or it can say, this is who I will never be. Right? So a story can again, depending on the event, but man, I'm never gonna be a business owner. I'm never gonna be a husband or a wife. But you just on the flip side, it can also say, I'm never. This is what I'm never gonna do. Right? I'm never gonna be broke. I'm never gonna, be a single parent. Things like that. You can talk about all different sorts of things, but it builds your identity. The story can be self-reinforcing, and what I mean by this is once your story is formed, the story then attracts evidence to confirm itself. This is a phenomenon that's known as confirmation bias. Essentially, what confirmation bias is whatever you think or whatever you believe, your mind will go and seek out evidence and seek out scenarios and seek out information and situations to confirm what it already believes. So if you are telling yourself something, then that story is going to be reaffirmed by your mind seeking out these things via confirmation bias. And your story can also be an invisible guide, right? Your story, as we talked about earlier, often operates beneath the surface. It's quietly steering decisions and actions that you make. So when we say beneath, it works in the sub, so in your subconscious or your unconscious, right? So your story is there, and that can come from a couple of different places, which we'll talk about. Then, how are these stories formed? Some of these stories can be formed from past experiences, whether it's success, failure, rejection. We talk about trauma a lot. It is the raw material. These events, these things can be raw material for the foundation or the beginning to the narrative of your story. We talked a little bit about how you interpret or the interpretation of certain events. The meaning that you choose at that time for the event is often influenced by certain things like emotion. And then your emotion makes it become the permanent part of your story. So if you were extremely distraught, if it was an extremely traumatic event, right, like 9/11, or like a serious accident, or maybe somebody passed away, the emotion that you feel in that time is going to make that story a permanent thing in your life. It could also be inherited beliefs, and this is probably the biggest one for most people. It's stories passed down within culture, within family. Religion is absolutely huge. Even societal norms, right? When you talk about certain people don't like this group of people, or we don't celebrate certain holidays, we don't eat certain types of food. All these different things can be a part of inherited beliefs that help form your story. And then, of course, there's just simple repetition. The more you tell yourself something, the more you say it out loud, or the more you repeat it in your mind, the deeper ingrained it's going to become within you. And then that is going to become your truth. So, again, repetition, the more you say something, the more you speak it. We talk a lot about words and thoughts have power and energy. So, the more you say something, the more likely it is that you will walk in what you are saying. Examples. What are some examples of stories within the framework of mindset? There are a couple different ones. We both have some positive and negative aspects, and let's start with some of the more negative, or what we like to call limiting stories that we might tell. So there is the "I'm not good enough" story. I'm not good enough to have this. I'm not good enough to do this. I'm not good enough to be this. Right? If that's you, let's see what we can do to help break you out of that. There is the "I always mess things up" story. I mess it up. I can't get it right. I never know what I'm doing. That story. There is the "I'm going to always be broke" story. And this one is problematic for a lot of reasons. If you're telling yourself, and we just talked about how words and thoughts have power, if you are telling yourself, "I am going to always be broke," what your mind is going to search and seek out the pathway to verify that and make that a reality. So we cannot and should not say any of these. And then finally, um, people can't be trusted. It's that "can't be trusted" phrase, and you can put anything in front of it. People can't be trusted. Men, women can't be trusted. Dogs can't be trusted. Systems can't be trusted. Anything where you're talking about these things or these people can't be trusted is a story that puts limits in the framework of your mindset. Now, of course, we want to talk about some of the more positive aspects of stories that we tell, right? I can learn from every experience. That's a huge one because if you tell yourself you can learn from every experience, it just says a lot about how you're viewing whatever it is that you're dealing with. And for many people, it could be something that could be considered positive, but you tend to look at it more as optimistic or with optimism because you're looking to learn. It may hurt, it may set you back, it may do a number of things, but your main purpose and goal is to learn from the experience. Another one is my past doesn't define my future. How many people do you know hanging on to the past? And they'll always hold on to that as their the infinite definition of who they are. And so they can't move into their future. They can barely function in their present, let alone move into their future because they still are allowing their past to define them and, of course, ultimately their future. You can say, I'm resilient and capable of creating change. Resiliency and capability are huge. Resiliency simply means you can bounce back, you can withstand, you can bend, but not break. And capable simply means you're going to find a way. You're capable, you have the ability, you have the skill set, you have the resources. You may simply just have the willpower to not give up for creating change. And sometimes that is all you need is just the determination to simply say, I will not give up. I will continue until I figure it out. And then challenges are opportunities in disguise. This one is huge because, again, it's recognizing that something is difficult. It's recognizing that something is not easy. It is recognizing that you are not currently in your comfort zone. And yet we may not be able to readily see the opportunity, but we know it's there. And that is going to cause us to continue to search and dig and pry and try and continue to just chip away at this challenge until the opportunity is unearthed, until the opportunity is brought to the surface. Why are we talking about this? Because we always got to talk about the importance of it or why this matters. Why does the story dimension as it relates to mindset matters? Well, your story can define possibility for you. If your story says you can't, your mind will allow you to see the paths where you can't do anything. Right? If you're telling yourself you can't, you won't be able to see the opportunity. You won't be able to see the road. You won't be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. You won't be able to see the resources that you may already actually have. Right? And so again, the story may define the level of possibility for you. Stories shape your behavior. Again, you act in ways that are aligned with the story that you believe. And we talked about that confirmation bias a little bit earlier, right? If you uh, believe a certain thing, your mind is going to search and seek out the ways to make that true. And so your behavior is going to act in a way that aligns and that is going to search for a way to make that story true. It's going to search for evidence to make that story true. Your story influences your emotion. Right? The stories determine whether you experience certain types of emotions. Right? So if you tell yourself that you can't or you never will, how are you ever going to experience hope or success? If you tell yourself that you're not able to, or if you tell yourself that you're not good enough, how are you going to experience peace and happiness? If you tell yourself that you don't deserve, again, how are you going to experience and feel all these different types of emotions? And then finally, they shape and create your identity. Stories create your and shape your identity. Your story becomes your sense of yourself. And the critical part to this is, even if your story is old and outdated and it's absolutely not true, your story becomes your sense of who you are. And again, this could be an old story that you've continuously told yourself. But we talked a little bit earlier about, if you keep telling yourself this story, this is where you are going to live. This is who you are going to continue to be. And so we need to address some of these things. And of course, the first thing and the best thing that we can do is to just become aware. How do we become aware that we are dealing with some of these limiting or negative stories that we find in our mindset? And of course, the first thing we need to do is write down our recurring thoughts. And we're going to continue to do that over this week. Notice which ones are repeated. Okay, notice which stories you continually tell yourself. Okay, so we want to write those down. And then, of course, if by chance you don't have a journal to write these down, and you can go to the link in the show description and you can get yourself the official Master Your Mindset journal. And it's accompanied along with other gear and apparel that you might enjoy. But go ahead and grab that journal, and we want to write down some of these stories and some of the things, some of the questions we're going to begin to ask ourselves is this: what story am I telling myself in this challenging situation? What story am I telling myself in this challenging situation? Right? Because you can't change what you don't see. And so we bring this stuff out of the dark. If we understand what our stories are that we are telling ourselves, then we can begin to change it. But first, we need to know, what story am I telling myself in this challenging situation? Next, we got to notice some things or some patterns. Notice the repeated phrases that we use, and notice what we continue to tell ourselves in our mind. I'm always going to be broke. I'm never going to get married. I'm never going to own a business. This is just the way it is. I'm always messing things up. I'm always failing. Notice those things that you continually tell yourself, the story that you say to yourself when facing difficulty. And then finally, I want you to write down some of your beliefs around these 5 things. I want you to write down your beliefs around your identity, around success, around failure, around love, and around worth. Write down your beliefs around those 5 things: identity. What do you believe identity is, or what do you believe about it? What do you believe success is? What do you believe failure is? What do you believe love is? And what do you believe worth is? These things are usually going to reveal and give you some of the strongest narratives, some of the strongest stories, some of the most limiting stories that you tell yourself. And I want you to ask yourself some questions. I want you to challenge the narrative and question the truth around some of these stories. Ask, is the story 100%? Is it 100? Is it true? Ask yourself, is this story 100% true? Did you choose the story? Or was the story given to you or handed to you by someone else? Is it something that was culturally taught to you? Did you choose this story? Did I choose the story, or was it handed or given to me by somebody else? Does this story serve me? Does this story benefit me, or does it put limits on me? All right, is it beneficial or not? And then let's expose some assumptions, uh, some exaggerations, and then really let's highlight some of our outdated beliefs in the story. First of all, is the story old? We talking about something from 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 30 years ago for some of us, hopefully not. Is it something from 2 weeks ago? I don't care how long ago it was. Expose some assumptions, exaggerations, and then let's just deal with if it's outdated or not. And then rewrite rewrite the story. Become the conscious author of your story. Become aware of the story that you are telling. Don't just operate without any awareness. Write a new version of your own story, right? And you could start with writing an identity statement. I am someone who is this. I am someone who is a person of peace. I am someone who is patient. I am someone who is destined to be successful. I am someone who is going to master my mindset, right? Yes, all of these things. And then picture it, see it in your mind, envision a future, and describe the story that you live by, right? When people say write a letter to your future self, right? Picture your future self and then describe the story that you are living in the future. It's one of the best ways to do that. And then let's get rid of some of those limiting stories, some of those negative stories. And we're going to replace those with affirmations grounded in possibility. I'm going to give you some of those at the end of the show. We're going to remove and try to take away some of those negative narratives, negative stories that you tell yourself. And I'm going to give you some affirmations to take with you this week so we can start being grounded in some possibility. And next, start walking it out. Walk out that thing that you wrote down. Because your stories aren't just words. You got to live those things out. They start as stories. But then you gotta get those words off the page and get them out into the atmosphere, right? So you got to start realigning some things. You got to start making your daily routine match the story that you wrote, right? You got to make some decisions too, right, that are consistent with the narrative, right? If you write something down, but then your actions don't mirror the words that are on the page, well, you know what that label is. So let's align some habits. Let's write down a new story, and then make some decisions that are consistent, that align, that match the story that we have rewritten consciously about who we want to be. And then celebrate those small wins. This is who I am now. So if you changed something, if you broke an old habit that you've been doing it for 2 days, that habit is broken. Right? I don't care if you've been doing it for 30 years. If you stop something for 3 days, that habit has been broken. You better celebrate those 3 days. And hope and pray that we get to 4, and then 40, and then 400, and then years. All right. Finally, let some stuff go. I'm going to say it again. You got to let some stuff go. Some of these stories, they served a purpose in the past, but they no longer serve you right now. And so you got to let that stuff go. Forgive yourself and forgive everybody else that's tied to it. Right? I'm not saying forget. Some people talk about, forgiveness is forgetting. No, it ain't, because we still have to have a level of wisdom and information so that if that same situation pops up, we don't make the same mistake. Right? So we need to remember the scenario. We need to remember what it felt like, and we need to remember what we endured. But we don't need to harbor resentment and hate and always continually talk about it and bring it up. So we can forgive, but we don't need to forget. We just need to remember that we don't need to be living in the past, all right? Because we can't move forward without it. Release some stuff. Release some shame. Release some guilt. Release intent. Release resentment that is anchored to the narrative. Shame, guilt, resentment. Those 3 things right there. Regret. Those 4 things will keep you in a spot with a story that happened 10 years ago. Let's start trying to release some of those things. And then finally, recognize where this story belongs. All right. If it was 20 years ago, If I look at my life, I'm almost 50. And if I do a chapter a year, it's about 50 chapters. If something happened in chapter 13 or chapter 17 or chapter 26, that's a long time ago. And I got to recognize that that chapter is a lot of chapters back, right? But what we need to know is that's not the whole story. And the story's not over. And so what we get to do is we get to begin writing a new chapter starting today. At the end of it all, let that stuff go. As always, I'm going to give you some reflection prompts to sit with for this week. And of course, as promised, your affirmations for this week. Reflection number 1. What story do I tell myself most often about who I am? And where did this story come from? Write this down as a reflection prompt. What story do I tell myself most often about who I am? And where the heck did this story come from? What story do I tell myself most often about who I am? And then try to figure out where the story came from. Reflection number 2. Which parts of my story limit me from stepping into my full potential? Where's the hang up? Where's the glitch in the matrix, so to speak? Which parts of my story limit me from stepping into my full potential? And it's because we're talking about stories, it's probably an old chapter. It's probably something from the past. So you got to let it go. Which parts of my story limit me from stepping into my full potential? What chapter of my old story am I ready to release with gratitude so I can move forward? What chapter of my old story am I ready to release with gratitude so I can move forward with a new story? Again, what chapter of my old story am I ready to release with gratitude so I can move forward? And then some affirmations for today. Affirmation number 1. I am the author of my story, not a prisoner of my past. I like that one. I am the author of my story, not a prisoner of my past. Once again, I am the author of my story. I am not a prisoner of my past. Affirmation number 2. Every challenge in my story has prepared me for greater strength and wisdom. Every challenge in my story has prepared me for greater strength and wisdom. Right. And that's what we talked about, that we can forgive, but we don't need to forget that. Don't forget that wisdom. Every challenge in my story has prepared me for greater strength and wisdom. Your final affirmation for this week: my future is not determined by old chapters. It is created by the story I tell today. My future is not created by old chapters. It's not created by chapter 7. It's not created by chapter 32. It's not created by chapter 23. My future is not created by old chapters. It is created by the story I tell today. Once again, my future is not defined by old chapters. It is created by the stories that I tell today. My final thought for today is this: your story is the script that guides your life. When you choose to become the author instead of the audience, that's when you reclaim the power to shape meaning and identity and direction in the story. Every old chapter that you release and every new one you write creates a more aligned path. It creates a path that's matched more closely toward who you truly want to be. Again, every chapter, every old chapter that you release and every new one that you write, that creates a more clearer picture of the path toward who you really want to be, right? But even the most empowering stories will require something else, right? They require a little energy, a little fuel, right? Words and beliefs alone aren't enough. You need some energy to walk those things out, right? In the next dimension, in the 7 dimensions of mindset, we're going to be talking about the energy dimension. And this is about the life force you bring to your habits, to your lens, and also to your story. It's how you show up. It's how you show up in a lot of different ways: mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. And in the next show, we're going to talk about and we'll uncover how to cultivate, how to protect, and how to direct and channel your energy so you can bring your story to life, so you can bring it into full view, and so you can live out the life that you have defined and decided that you want to live. As always, Kings, thank you for joining me once again here on Master Your Mindset. Remember, as always, check your vibe. If your mind is bright, then we can vibe right. Yes, indeed. People, if this podcast has shifted your mindset or moved you to change your vibe, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with somebody that you love, somebody that you care about, or someone that you believe can vibe in a new way. Leave me a review, subscribe, and follow me on Instagram at KingYesIndeed. Also, if you are interested in vibe coaching consultation, please email me at kingyesindeed@gmail.com. Let's find more personally tailored approach to your vibe. And yeah, I give one-on-one coaching. I can do group coaching through mind or vibe or mindset coaching classes. Until next time, people, check your vibe. Mind bright, vibe right. Yes, indeed.